Hello, folks. This is Brian Kastner coming to you from Shillington, Pennsylvania. It's the suburbs of Reading. And welcome back to the channel today. And then we're going to continue on with what I was teaching from the previous video, the sign. I think I'm going to call this one the sign part 2, and no one knows the day and the hour. I touched on it last time about no one knows the day and the hour, but I didn't really get into it because it talks about it about 5 times in the Bible, and we're going to go through all 5 times and give you the truth of what that really is talking about. And what you're going to find out is that, well, let's say what you're being taught. I know what you're being taught because I've been going to the churches throughout almost my entire life. I'm going to say about 90% of my life I've been going to church, and what's been taught has been that no one knows the day and the hour means we're not supposed to know when the Lord Jesus is coming to come here and rapture us out of the church or out of this world. And that is just not what it means. It doesn't mean that at all. So what we're going to find out today is what does it actually mean? And I think you might be a little bit surprised to find out you are supposed to know when Jesus is coming for us. So stay tuned. We're going to get into this right now. We're going to start with no one knows the day and the hour that we are supposed to know things. And we're going to touch back a little bit of what I taught about last week about what is the sign of the end. Okay. And what's being taught in the church is that in Matthew 24, they're always looking at it as it being the rapture is the end, and that is not true. The rapture is not the end of everything. The rapture happens in the middle of the tribulation, and after that, the great tribulation comes for another 3.5 years. So the rapture cannot be the end. We're taking out of a hard time that the world's going to go through, and that is called salvation from the wrath of God. So let's get into this a little bit. I touched about this last time. If you want to actually catch up, watch the video called The Sign first. Watch that one first, then come back to this video. But I'm going to call this one, I think, part 2. I wasn't planning on doing a part 2, and actually last time I only planned on teaching on a lesson that would take about a half an hour. Well, that didn't work out at all because it was about an hour and 2 minutes. I think it was like 62 minutes that video was, which is way too long. But sometimes it just can't be helped. And once you get started, it's one subject runs into another and it runs into another. It just keeps on going. So let's switch over to the screen. I have the PDF file up here. And we're going to teach about today. No one knows the day and the hour, and what does it refer to? Okay, and I put in here in the title, the rapture occurs first. And then it's no one knows the day and the hour of the end. That's what we're going to find out today. I'm going to prove that. Let's first start off. I did touch about this last week. I'm just going to go over it again so that you get in your mind that God does want you to know when he's about to show up. Now, in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 1 says, "Now concerning the times and the seasons, brothers, you have no need to have anything written to you, for you yourselves are fully aware that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. While people are saying there is peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them as labor pains come upon pregnant women, and they will not escape. But you," okay, you people, the church. Here's the message is to the church, to God's people. "But you are not in darkness, brothers, for that day to surprise you like a thief. But you, brothers and sisters, are not living in darkness. And so that day will not," excuse me, got a tickle in my throat here. "And so that day will not surprise you like a thief." Excuse me. So we are not to be surprised. that when Jesus is coming. We are supposed to know when he is coming for us. All right, so when I talked last week about the signs, I don't think I really iterated that much about what are the signs before the rapture. And then maybe I need to do a video on that. And I might touch about that today a little bit, because I think as the church should know what are those signs that we should be looking for before Jesus comes back. And I did give you some information last time, but I think I need to go over it again. So, but first, let's get through. No one knows the day and the hour. And I'm going to go back to Matthew 24 again and start from there, because that's where it's first mentioned in the Bible. It's mentioned 5 times. And let's go back to Matthew 24, verse 22. And I teach, I'm using the English Standard Version right now. King James will read similar, but not exactly. So if you're following along, and it might be hard if you don't have the English Standard Version. And by the way, what I use is a program called eSword. And you can look that up online. It's e-sword, SWORD.com. Or you can just Google it, eSword Bible. And you can download that for free. And there's a lot of translations you can use on your computer for free. And then they have also premium versions as well. But I haven't really found it necessary to buy them. I only bought 2. I bought the Amplified version, and I think I bought the NIV just so I would have it to compare. Other than that, I use mostly the English Standard Version. So let's go through Matthew 24, starting with verse 22. And if those days had not been cut short, I touched on it last time. Cut short meaning we're leaving here early. No human being would be saved. For the sake of the elect, God's people, those days will be cut short. Then if anyone says to you, look, here is Christ, or there he is, do not believe it, for false Christs or false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. It means that there's people in the church that's going to be fooled. And there's only one reason why they're going to be fooled. They're not being given the truth, or they're not listening to the truth. And they're just lost. It says, see, I have told you beforehand, verse 26, so if they say to you, look, he is in the wilderness, do not go out. If they say, look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming, and actually coming means presence, of the Son of Man. So I think, you know what? There's another program I use. It's called ISA Basic, and that stands for Interlinear Scriptural Basic. Interlinear Scriptural Analyzer, ISA. And it's the basic version. And I got the older version right here. I have the newer one and the older one. I'm using the older one right now because it's so much easier to see. Now, the coming of the Lord in the interlinear scripture, it is a literal translation of what was written in the Greek. And here it is. Instead of coming, the actual word means presence of the Lord. When you think of presence of Jesus, it means that he's present here with us. And during the rapture, Jesus only comes as far as the clouds. He is not going to step foot on earth until he comes back to set up his kingdom. So I don't know if you can see this. I made this bigger, so I hope that you see it this time. But anyway, in the Greek, the word used is presence, not coming of the Lord, presence of the Lord. So let's go back to Matthew 24, 28. Verse 28, wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. Now, immediately after the tribulation of those days, I'm going to reiterate this again. The tribulation period is only 3.5 years long. The other 3.5 years left over is called the Great Tribulation. So, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened. That's one sign. The moon will not give its light. That's another sign. And the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. That's another sign. So, and I got to tell you from reading the Bible, this is going to happen in Israel, most likely in Israel. So always keep your eyes towards Israel, because we aren't going to actually see it here, but it definitely is going to be on the news. But we are probably about 6-7 years away from this. But anyway, Matthew 24:30. Then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man. That means the sign is Jesus. And then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man, Jesus, coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So that is a sign, not to the church. It's a sign to the people who are watching this. And he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds and from one end of heaven to the other. Now, he gives a parable right away. From the fig tree, learn its lesson. As soon as the branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near. So when you see all these things, what did you just see? Hopefully it's not the church, but it's the people who were left behind. What did they see? Back to verse 30, they saw Jesus coming in the clouds, raising the dead. Doesn't mention it here, but that's part of it. This is in Corinthians, where we're going to have to teach about that another day, where the resurrected dead, or the dead in Christ, will be raised first, and then the ones on earth who are God's children will meet them in the air together and then go to heaven with Jesus. So that's what they just saw. And that is a sign to the people who were left behind that he is near. Not that he came here, is that he's near, because we all just left and Jesus left with us, because he took us to heaven with him. So we're back to verse 34. Truly I say to you that this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. That's another confusing spot for some people, because some people say that the Bible's lying because that generation, it didn't happen when this was written. Actually, not when this was written, when Jesus said it. Jesus wasn't talking about that generation. He's talking about that generation that he's talking about, which is the generation that it happens in. So he's talking about this generation that it's going to happen. I'm pretty sure it's going to be this generation right now. I believe this is time. We're going to see him soon. I'm sorry, kind of losing my voice, and I don't know why. So I'm going to try to get through this probably quicker than I want to. Verse 35. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But concerning that day and an hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only. No one knows the day and the hour of what? Of the end, not the rapture. Now we're going to go on to the second one of no one knows the day or the hour. For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming presence of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day when Noah entered the ark. And they were unaware. I know what, I can't do this.
We'll be right back.
Okay, I'm going to try to continue on. I kind of got my voice back a little bit. So I had to stop the video for a little bit. Let's see if I can continue on. All right. For in verse 37, for as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming presence of the Son of Man. For in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day when Noah entered the ark. Now, the day that Noah entered the ark, that was the last day for these people who were left on earth. They had their chance to get on board, and they did not do it. And they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming presence of the Son of Man. That's talking not about the rapture. It is talking about the end. Now, here's the funny part. I wasn't going to teach this today. This is always missed, because nobody really actually continues on and teaches about it. But let me put this thought in your mind. If we are to leave here in the middle of the apocalypse, let's call it, because that should be the proper name for it, because the whole thing is not a tribulation period. Oh, it's two halves. One half being a tribulation, the other half being a great tribulation. In the middle is when God takes us out of here so that we do not go through the great tribulation, which is considered the wrath of God. And that is in the book of Revelation. So then what happens to the people, or the people, God's people, who were left behind? And what happens also, are there people of the world who come to Jesus and get saved throughout the next 3.5 years? What happens to them? Well, a lot of them are going to be killed. But hopefully they become saved before they're killed. Or the other thing is, one of the things that's going to happen, the mark of the beast comes out. And if they deny to take the mark of the beast, they will also be killed. But because of their obedience to God and not taking the mark of the beast, I believe they will also be saved. Saved from what? Saved from hell, not from going through the wrath of God, of course. So at the end of the tribulation, before Jesus comes back, at the end of the tribulation and before Jesus comes back, there's a 75-day period when we will be coming back with him, but we don't know what day. We absolutely don't know what day. Just like this Bible says, no one knows the day or the hour, because only the Father knows. The Father's the one who's going to give the order for us to come back. That's what it's referring to. Now let's go back to verse 40. What happens to those people who were left behind? There's going to be another resurrection. Then there will be people on earth. Now listen to this. After the rapture happens, because we just read earlier, the rapture already happened. And then it says, then, what does that mean? Then after that. Okay, because it already talked about the rapture. So what happens after the rapture? At the end of the apocalypse, read verse 40. Then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and one left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and one left. Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know on what day our Lord is coming. So, yeah, there's a second rapture, folks. And I can verify that in Book of Revelation, because it talks about it, but nobody ever teaches it. And you don't have to wonder what's going to happen. All those people, they stuck here. They never get a chance to actually accept Christ because they were left behind after rapture. Yes, they do get a second chance. I don't recommend it. I recommend you go through the first rapture and go to heaven then. But yeah, God does give second chances. But also it does say, then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken. At the rapture is going to be millions of people going at once. But at the end of the apocalypse, actually, there's not going to be many people left. And I think that's why it says then 2 men will be in the field. One will be taken and one left. There's not going to be many people who are going to be going on to the second rapture up to heaven. But anyway, verse 43, but know this, that if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake. It would not have left his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Who then is unfaithful and wise servant who his master has set over his household to give them their food at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will set him over all possessions. But if that wicked servant says to himself, my master is delayed. People are doing that now. I keep saying, Jesus, is he really coming back? And then all of a sudden, they fall away. They turn away from God. They start going back to their old ways of doing things. That's what this is referring to. Excuse me. And begins to beat his fellow servants and eats and drinks with drunkards. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he does not know. Why don't they know? Well, for one, nobody's supposed to know when Jesus is coming back to set up his kingdom. Not even us. But anyway, let's get into the third mention. It's in Matthew 25, verse 1. It starts here. And leading up to the third time, it mentions no one knows the day and the hour. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. Now these virgins are in parable form. The virgins represent God's people. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. For when the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, and they all became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a cry, here is the bridegroom, come out and meet him. Then all those virgins rose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, give us some of your oil, for our lamps have gone out. But the wise answering said, meaning the obedient God's children said, forget it. You can stay behind. We're leaving. Since there will not be enough for us and for you, go rather to the dealers and buy for yourselves. And while they were going to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him and married to the marriage feast, and the door was shut. Afterward, other virgins came also, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he said, truly I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour. Now, here this puts it kind of home, saying, after the rapture, the ones who are left behind keep saying, Lord, Lord, open it to us. And he said, no. He says, keep watch. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour. Meaning what? So always be ready. You don't know the day or the time when the Son of Man will come. Okay, it's not referring to the rapture at all. The rapture already happened. It's referring to when Jesus comes back and sets up his kingdom. And the only chapter, the only part of the Bible where it actually says setting up the kingdom, or when the kingdom is near, is in Luke. Boy, I wish this was worded different. I really do. But otherwise, I wouldn't have to go through all of this to try to prove my point. But you'll find out now. And Mark has the same story, Mark 11 or Mark 13. It's the same story, but worded a little bit different. Now, I was going to start with verse 20, though. And if Mark 13, verse 20, and if the Lord had not cut short the days, no human being would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, whom he chose, he shortened the days. He's not going to shorten the minutes and the hours of the day. What he's meaning is he's shortened our days here on earth. While the worldly people are going to stay behind, our days are going to be cut short and go to heaven. So we don't have to live our life out here on the world suffering like the rest do. So verse 21, and then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, and look, there he is, do not believe it. And this is after the rapture it's referring to. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform signs and wonders to lead astray, if possible, the elect. Okay. It's like, I thought the elect just left. No. There are disobedient elect who are left behind. That's what it means. But be on your guard. I have told you all things beforehand. But in those days, after, here it is again, after the tribulation, here's where Jesus is going back again. Not everything is in sync. You'll notice that if you ever tried to read the book of Revelation, it's not one thing after the other, after the other, after the other. Is that, like in the book of Revelation, it'll talk about one thing, and then it will have to go back and describe it even in more detail of what he just talked about. And that's what he's doing right now. But in those days after the tribulation, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. These are signs before the rapture, because now he's coming back to the rapture again. And then they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And then he will send out his angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. From the fig tree, learn its lesson. As soon as its branch becomes tender, put out its leaves, you know that summer is near. So also, when you see these things taking place, here it is again. Mark is just right in line with Matthew. What did they see take place? Back to verse 26, the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory, and then he will send out his angels and gather his elect. That's what people will see. And who will see it? The ones left behind. So the message from here on out is not directed towards the church. It is directed towards the people who are left behind. So verse 29, so also when you see these things, you know that he is near, at the very gates. So what did he see? So when you see the rapture and you see the people leave here, when you see the angels taking his elect up in the air to heaven, you know that he is near. So when it's talking about he's near, it's not talking about the rapture. It's talking about after the rapture. He's near. Verse 30. And Mark 13, verse 30. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all things take place. And if you're trying to follow me here on the screen, I put the word in there, that. And I did that myself. I put it in parentheses just to reiterate. He's talking about that generation that is going to be raptured out of here, not this generation that he was living in at the time. Verse 31, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not. But concerning that day or that hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. So be on guard, keep awake. Now we're getting into the last time it mentions no one knows the day and the hour. Luke, verse 21, nails it. Okay, what it really means. And I wish it would have said it throughout Matthew and throughout Mark. It would have made things so much easier because nobody ever teaches out of Luke. They teach out of Matthew. But Luke just sends it right home what it means. So we're going to start again. Not the whole chapter of 21, but halfway through. We're going to start with verse 25. And there will be signs in the sun and moon and stars. Here it goes again. Talking about the signs before the rapture. On earth, distress of nations and perplexity because of the roaring of the sea and the waves. People fainting with fear and with foreboding of what is coming on the world. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken. See, it's talking about the same thing, but it's wording it different because there is more than what goes on than what they just talked about in Matthew. And if you want to learn more of what's going to go on before the rapture, read Revelation chapter 6, because that is the beginning. The first seal is the beginning of the tribulation. And then, all right, verse 27, and then they will see the Son of Man coming in the cloud with power and great glory. Now, when these things begin to take place, straighten up and raise your heads because your redemption is drawing near. Now, if you notice, it doesn't go into detail that the angels came with him. It doesn't go into detail that he raised the dead. It doesn't go into detail that the people, the elect, went up to the heaven to meet Jesus in the air, then go to heaven. It just doesn't do it here. Why? I don't know why. But it's the same story. Excuse me. I'm having trouble with my throat today for some reason. I got a tickle. It just won't go away. So we'll have to get it to go away. So verse 29. This is another fig tree lesson, just like Matthew and Mark. And he told them in a parable, look at the fig tree and all these trees. As soon as they come out in a leaf, you see for yourselves and know that the summer is already near. So also, when you see these things taking place, not the fig tree, what things taking place? Because the fig tree is only a parable. What took place? The Son of Man coming in the cloud with great power and glory. That's what took place. And the people, God's people, left this earth. That's what took place. Angels showed up and took the people. That's what took place. So verse 31 again. So also when you see these things taking place, the rapture that is, you know that the kingdom of God is near. And here's where I wish it said the exact same thing in Matthew and the exact same thing in Mark, but it didn't. Luke does. It's all the no one knows the day and the hour is talking about God, Jesus coming back here with the saints to set up the kingdom that's going to last for 1,000 years. That the kingdom of God is near is the fifth time it mentions about no one knows the day and the hour. Okay, it's the fifth time that it says this. That it finally comes out and nails it and says the kingdom of God is near. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all has taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not. You know what? I don't think I'm going to get into the rest of this about the second watch and the third watch. Maybe I should. I should have looked to see what time I started because I really don't Oh, okay. It's been 20 minutes. That's not too bad. Yeah, let's continue on. See if I can help you a little bit. In verse 34 in Luke. Now, Luke mentions this stuff, but Matthew and Mark does not. It says in verse 34, but watch yourselves, lest your hearts be weighted down and dissipation and drunkenness and cares of this life, and that they come upon you suddenly like a trap. For it will come upon all who dwell on the face of the whole earth. But stay awake at all times, praying that you may have strength to escape all these things that are going to take place, and to stand before the Son of Man of God. Son of Man. In verse 37, blessed are those servants whom the master finds awake when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will dress himself for service and have them recline at table, and he will come and serve them. If he comes in the second watch or in the third and finds them awake, blessed are those servants. But know this, that if the master of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have left his house to be broken into. You must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. The warning is to the people who are not being obedient to God. Now let's go back to verse 38. What does that mean if he comes in the second watch or in the third? Folks, Jesus is coming now 3 times. We're only taught that he's coming once. And actually, most churches teach twice, but they don't say it twice. They teach that there's a rapture and then he's coming back to set up his kingdom. That would be 2 times that he's coming. 2. But here it mentions a third one, and that is directly in line with the book of Revelation, what that teaches. That he's coming 3 times. Why 3 times? Well, just like I told you, there's a second rapture. The first time he shows up is the first rapture, which is the middle of the apocalypse. The second time is at the very end of the apocalypse. Then he comes and takes the rest of the people who became obedient Christian people like they were supposed to be. Of course, most of them were dead, I'm sure. And he's going to raise the dead again. And in Corinthians, it talks about it in Corinthians about the resurrection, because there's more than one. So the first rapture would be the first watch. The second rapture would be the second watch. So what's the third one? The third one is when he comes back and sets up his kingdom. That's the third time he's coming back. So maybe is it possible after the second rapture that people will get to know Jesus within that short period of time? I guess it's possible that they could be saved at that point. According to this, it's possible. But I can't really pinpoint and say yes for sure. Or if it's actually going to happen, if people are actually going to finally get it after 2 times seeing people leave here twice. Are they going to be saved after that? I don't know. They were thick-headed all along. Are they going to finally change then? Maybe. So, if you're wondering, if you ever wondered and you read that before about what's the second watch and the third watch means, it's not a parable. This is not a parable at all. This is actually true, is what's going to happen in the book of Revelation. Yeah, if you read the book of Revelation, you probably won't find it unless you study. If you just read, you probably won't get it. So eventually, later, much, much later, I will get into the book of Revelation and teach that. But that one's going to be like a very hard subject to teach, and it's going to be very, very long and probably very boring. But as you see the world decline, as it is declining pretty much on a daily basis, you might get more interested as things heat up, so to speak. So I think, you know what, I think I will end there, because we're at about 25 minutes. And like I said, people's attention span only lasts about a half an hour for a video, for a teaching, including me. So last time I went over, way over, and I didn't plan on it. So I want to, I think I want to stop here. Yep, I do. So anyway, let me talk to you. So I hope that helped clear things up a little bit. What's the subject about? No one knows the day and the hour is referring to when Jesus comes back to set up his kingdom. It is not referring to the rapture. Because the reason I'm teaching about this is because every time I hear it, every time it's taught in the church, no one knows the day or the hour of the rapture. That is absolutely not what it's referring to. And there is a way to know when Jesus is coming. And it mentions here, like 5 times it mentioned about the sun won't give its light, the moon won't give its light and will turn to blood, and the stars will be thrown down to earth and they won't give its light no more. Those are 3 signs right there, right before the rapture. And then the other one was the abomination of desolation will be set up in the temple. When that shows up, we are out of here. Now that has not shown up, and it can't show up until there's a temple. And one of the problems with the temple is that the Jews want to continue and try to rebuild Solomon's temple on Temple Mount. The problem is they are disobeying God when they do that, because they are told not to. They aren't told to build that one. They are told to build the temple that is in Ezekiel. And they don't want to do that. They think they need to build Ezekiel's temple on the Temple Mount, but they say, oh, it's too big to fit. Well, no kidding. Read the rest of the book of Ezekiel. Tells you there's a new location for it. So that's part of the problem. That's what the hold up with the rapture is because the rebellion that takes place, that it talks about in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, I think it is, where it talks about the rebellion. That's where the rebellion takes place, in the temple. That sets the whole entire apocalypse in motion. And right now we don't have a temple. Since we don't have a temple, the abomination of desolation won't show up. And if that doesn't show up, the rapture can't happen. All right. This is the way God said things have to happen. And I can't change it. You can't change it. Nobody can change it. And God himself will not change it, because he said his words will not pass away. Heaven and earth will pass away, but his words will not, because he wants it to go exactly the way he said. So keep watch on Israel. When you actually hear them say, we are going to build Ezekiel's temple, and where that one's supposed to be built, from the best I could figure out from the directions that Ezekiel says, is near Jericho or Mitzvah Jericho. It's going to be around that area where that temple is supposed to be built. And I can't pinpoint it because I don't live over there, and I can't measure it out without being there. I can only do it from looking at like Google Maps and stuff like that. So when you start hearing that, start getting excited, then you know the time is coming near when we're going to be out of here finally. All right, I think I'm going to wrap that one up. So I hope somebody got something out of that. Please You know, tell your pastor. Give this to your pastor. Let him learn this so he starts teaching the truth and stops lying to the church, stops lying to you. And then if he still doesn't want to listen, fire him, smack him, do something. We'll do whatever you got to do to wake him up or get rid of him. If these pastors want to keep teaching these lies and keep telling you, and they don't want to give you the truth and don't want to tell you that there is a way to know when Jesus is about ready to come here and rapture us out of here. So, and tell them to stop teaching that no one knows the day and the hour is referring to the rapture, because it's not referring to that at all. So I think it's time to wrap it up. In my description box below, take a look. What I have in there, I have a list of 7 prophets. I think as the days goes on, there will be more and more and more show up. Then some of them will be false, some of them will be true prophets. And we'll all have to work together to figure out who's true and who's not. But right now, I have 7 listed who I think, in my mind, are the true prophets for today. And these prophets are going to be essential to get us through the next 10 years or so, from up until the rapture. Because I don't believe we're going to be here longer than 10 years, according to what God has said through the prophets. And they are going to be very essential to help us walk through these hard times that we're going to be going through. So I know the church is not used to hearing from prophets or used to having prophets in the church today. Prophets have always existed through old times, all the way up until now. It's just they weren't noticed until now because they weren't essential until now. So these are the ones I believe that are true. You can see Julie Green, Hank Kunneman, Robin Bullock, Timothy Dixon, Kent Christmas, Joeseph Z. I don't know what Z stands for. I have no idea. But anyway, there's one more. Who am I? Oh, Amanda Grace. That's who I was missing there in that list. And you'll have your favorites, of course, just like I do. They're all very good. They all are subject to the teachings, what they were taught. I want to warn you, they teach things from the church that are not true, unfortunately. And keep that in mind when you're teaching. But when God is speaking through them, that's what I'm telling you to pay attention to. Listen to what God has to say. And then hopefully the prophets learn the truth as that I'm giving it. And kind of like I don't want to say too much right now on that subject. The truth will get the church back on its feet, because it is not right now. And it's possible that I might be the one to bring the truth back to the church. And it's possible there may be others who might follow in line, and then maybe not follow. I mean, it's possible that there are other people out there doing the exact same thing I'm doing. I haven't seen them yet, but it's very possible other people will be doing the exact same thing I'm doing. So hopefully this corrects the church and gets it back on or in line with God again, instead of listening to these untruths that are being taught. So take a look at the pastors. I have links already in the description. Also, I am an affiliate of TubeBuddy. I use TubeBuddy in my process to upload my videos, and it actually helps me with my keywords for the tags, and it helps me upload my videos quicker, and it goes through everything, make sure I have all my checks and balances, and make sure everything is taken care of to put the video through without missing anything. So that's what I use TubeBuddy for. So I have a video at the end. It's a TubeBuddy promotion. They allowed me to use their video to attach to my videos. I got it in writing. And then you just try it out. If you're a YouTube creator, just try it out, add it to your browser. And when you upload videos, sign in to TubeBuddy, and it will help you upload your videos. So just give it a shot, see if it works for you. And then there goes my phone. You probably don't hear it, but I hear it. So anyway, till next time, I say God love you. I love you. God loves you. And God is absolutely good. Like I said, I stole that from Robin Bullock, and I think everybody who is in the church should be saying the exact same thing. So anyway, until next time, God love you.
We've seen you asking, what is TubeBuddy? Good question. Let's take some time to answer this. TubeBuddy is designed to help you save time, get more views, and do more on YouTube. TubeBuddy is a browser extension, but most people say a browser plugin. It's like Grammarly or Honey. It adds extra options to your web browser. In TubeBuddy's case, we add tools directly on top of YouTube. You can install TubeBuddy on Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, and Microsoft Edge. We'll have an article in the description on where you can find and install TubeBuddy for free. After installing TubeBuddy, simply go to youtube.com and you'll see our features right inside YouTube with this TubeBuddy logo right here. All you need to do is sign in. In addition to the extension, we have a mobile app that we update frequently. Plus, we offer a bunch of other tools which can be found on the TubeBuddy website. Now, downloading TubeBuddy won't instantly get you results, although that would be awesome. No, TubeBuddy is like any tool. For example, if you wanted to cut down a tree, you could just use your hands. This would take a while and be painful, but it can be done. With the right tools like an axe, it can be done quicker, easier, and pain-free. And with the paid versions of TubeBuddy, it's like using a chainsaw, giving you more time to focus on the task at hand and less time focusing on the problems. Or, in the case of YouTube with TubeBuddy, your painful journey becomes a lot simpler, so you can focus more on creating content and less time on the back end with things such as titles, description, and tags. We want to empower you to create more and work less.